wish you were here. We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground, and how we found the same old fear. I wish you were here. Hello and welcome once again to the Noachide Nexus. James the Idol Smasher, your host, I guess, for the evening. Here with Abby and Reuven and Wayman. Parsha Eikev. And just for posterity, August 14th, 2014. Waiting for the drop. Has anybody read the Parsha this week? Or is it just me? I really wish J-Dubs was here. He had a kind of an enlightening take on it. He was speaking about the afterlife. Like last night in a comment, he said this week's Parsha deals with the afterlife a bit. And my first instinct was say, yeah, that's right. And then I had to think, no, wait a second. I think he might have meant for the world to come. Reuven asks if Wish You Were Here has become the official song of the Noachide Nexus. I guess it's going to be. I don't know. Yeah. I saw Karina Rachel. She does a channel here called Psyche Truth and some really great stuff on there. And I've caught a live chat with her once or a live show once or twice, and she always starts out with a song. She plays guitar, and so I thought, well, yeah, wow, what a great way to start a show. And so that's the one I play the most anyway. So I guess yeah, might as well, because I do. I wish y'all were here. Always. Is there anybody else here who got the indication that the Parsha this week was speaking about the afterlife? Or am I the only one who doesn't see that? I don't see it.
Well,
I do.
I think it kind of could be. I don't know if y'all can hear me. I'm sitting out on the deck.
I can hear you fine. Could you see it as the world to come being kind of the heaven you might have been talking about?
Oh, hang on. My computer just died. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. My screen went black, so go ahead and continue until I figure it out, but my mic will be on because I can't see anything, so I'll try to keep it down, all right?
All right. Moses continues encouraging the nation to trust in God to ensure their successful conquest of the land and abundant blessings in every aspect of their lives. And he stressed again all the vestiges of idolatry had to be eliminated from the land. Once again, Moses is reiterating, encouraging, and a little bit even chastising. We'll get in here in a bit.
Did he say it was reminiscent, that it was referring to the afterlife or the Messianic era? maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was hoping he'd show up so we could talk about it, but he said afterlife. That was a word he used. I would have thought maybe the world to come, possibly the Messianic era.
The Messianic era I can see.
Yeah. Welcome, shalom. Go ahead, Abby. I'm sorry.
No, it's nothing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't see anything in it that would be that way. But I know there's a lot of verses, especially when it talks about blessing and stuff, where the sages are like, in this verse, it says this, which means this world, and then this, which means the world to come. So, I mean, there could be verses like that in here.
Yeah, that's kind of obscure, though.
Yeah.
Almost. Let me find it real quick. It's almost like he's telling you what's going to happen to the land, and there's a lot of good in there. I like how he goes. One of the reasons why I like Deuteronomy is he spells out a lot of stuff. And when I go back and try to quote in discussion with other people about it, I often forget Deuteronomy. That there's so much more to the law than you'll get out of Exodus, for instance. You can go back and get it,
Totally. Yeah, because he actually gives explanations and stuff. It's often referred to as the Mishneh Torah, the second Torah, basically.
Reiteration.
Yes, exactly. I noticed something interesting in the very first verse of the Parsha, which is not obvious if you're reading an English translation a lot of times. It says in the art scroll, it says, "This shall be the reward when you hearken to these ordinances, and you observe and you perform them." Now, in Hebrew, it technically says, "This shall be the reward when you listen to these ordinances and you guard and do them. Then Hashem your God will guard for you the covenant and kindness that he swore to your forefathers." So it's laying out a measure for measure thing. If you guard the mitzvot, then Hashem will guard the promises he made to you. It's just an interesting thing, because that's how, as I've been taught, that's how a lot of things work. It's a very measure for measure sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's the afterlife thing the other guy was thinking of. The reward, afterlife. Most people, when they think afterlife, they think reward and punishment.
Yeah, he's a Noachide, but we're all learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, you'll get a little something about the afterlife in the Noachide Nexus tomorrow, and dude's not shown. But I wonder if he was discussing the Messianic. That makes a lot more sense. So. Yeah, here's what I liked. Okay. Actually, I think the whole chapter 8 really. You should know in your heart that just as a father will chastise his son, so Hashem, your God, chastises you. Shall observe the commandments of Hashem, your God, to go his ways and to fear him. For Hashem, your God, is bringing you a good land, a land with streams and water and springs and underground water coming forth in valley and mountain, a land of wheat, barley, grape, fig, and pomegranate, a land of oil, olives, and date honey. Land where you will eat bread without poverty. You will lack nothing there. A land whose stones are iron, and from whose mountains you will mine copper. And of course, copper is what was on the floor of the temple on the top, where the fire was. It was made of copper. Ooh, date honey. That's what it. Okay, date honey. Yeah, dates left in the sun. Their honey-like juice oozes from them. Honey is used to refer not only to bees' honey, but to every manner of sweet food, such as dates. Not no poverty. If anybody ever asks you about what's the point of keeping Torah, it's like, well, Torah does eliminate poverty when properly applied. Brother John joined the room. All right. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Hey, Ruben, and who else is in the room? Abby, how you doing?
Abby and
Doing
Jacob.
good, man.
Mike.
I'm sorry. It's hard to hear.
Say Abby and Jacob are on one mic tonight, so there are two actually there in the door.
Oh, okay.
There's J Dubs. Well, it's about time.
Good
John,
question, James.
Hello, everyone.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I didn't know if I came in the middle of your study. I didn't want to interrupt. I was just curious. Hey, Ruben. How come you don't post it live
I didn't post it live.
to the public? The Hangout.
I thought I did. Okay.
Oh no, I went on the Hangouts.
Well, I just didn't want. I don't know because I like doing a public thing and I like conversation, but there's a lot of folks who aren't interested, who don't want to come in here and discuss Torah, at least for the first hour.
No, what I'm saying is you can broadcast it live for your viewers and only have, and you can send private invitation for people to be actually in the room. This way, at least, if people are interested in it or never even heard of it, if they're watching the broadcast, maybe they'll learn something.
Well,
If they watch it live, and you can even, set up a question and answer thing if someone, this way you don't have to deal with trolls coming into the room, but maybe other people in the public are interested. That's all.
the YouTube video is up right now.
Oh, the YouTube, okay. Because I was looking in my Hangouts page and I didn't see you come up. Let me refresh it. Maybe that's a problem. Let's see. 'Cause I see Rob's Hangout going.
Oh, I think what Brother John's trying to say is public, not private.
Public, yeah. Why isn't it shown publicly?
This is I think that what he's saying is this is a private phone call, not a public hangout. But it's cool.
No, I'm saying you can broadcast it public, but only have,
Right, no open link. Right, yeah.
Right, exactly, yeah. So this way you can, somebody educates, somebody who might be interested in it.
Well, I got
Just
the YouTube up on my page, so
okay, that's cool.
yeah, hopefully. And I wouldn't mind opening up the floodgates here. I've got to actually go to work here tonight. I can't make it a long thing. I'll come back. So it's good you've got to hang out at 9. It's like perfect.
10 o'clock, actually.
Our other Yitzchak has joined. Hello, Path of Abraham. Yeah, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central, 7 Pacific. Broadcast up.
So where are we in the Parsha this week, right now at this moment?
Ed is in. You mentioned last night, and maybe it was late. I don't remember it right, but you said something about we might learn a little something about the afterlife in this week's Parsha.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a connection.
Explain, please. I was hoping he'd show up and talk to us about this.
Oh no, I have nothing on me. I thought we were going to learn it with you. That's why it was coming.
Oh, learn from me. I don't know jack. I've been reading out of an old Chumash. I got the Stone edition, and yeah, I don't know anything anymore. Thought I knew something, but I know nothing. I did see a bit of the world to come in here, and that's one thing that Abby and I were discussing before you came in. Was that it does seem to have because it does talk about in fact we were on poverty when Brother John walked in and you followed. We were talking about how in the land there will not be poverty. The Parsha says you will not be reduced to eating stale bread as poor people must. Alternatively, the land will be a thriving economy that will provide its population with means to purchase whatever commodities they need. Allegorically, the Torah is likened to bread. Thus, the sense of the verse is that Eretz Yisrael, the spiritual center of the universe, is better suited than any other land for growing in Torah. The Torah speaks not of the poverty of insufficient calories or of not enough money to buy food. The subject is spiritual poverty. In other words, people fail to see that there is more to survival than food and creature comforts. But in Eretz Yisrael, Moses told them they would see the hand of God in every kernel of grain and not languish in spiritual deprivation. Yeah, why should we? I was saying, why should we keep Torah? Why should I? What? Well, poverty is a good reason. What, you want to get rid of poverty? Well, there will be no destitute as well. Path of Abraham is put up here in the chat room. That's Deuteronomy 15:11.
Yeah, notice it said what I found interesting. It said you'll have what you would need, not what you want. That's a big difference.
Yeah, you said you wouldn't even want. There would be no desire.
Right, that's like the different, that's like the concept of the Messianic age. The Messianic age in the Torah perspective isn't like a candy land where everything's like perfect and good. The Messianic age is just that the basic concepts of like humanity will be fixed. Like the basic flaws of humanity will be fixed. There'll still be issues. We're still going to have issues, but like just logical things like the fact that we can feed everybody on the planet right now will mean that in the Messianic age we will feed everybody on the planet. Everybody will have food, clothing, and shelter. There won't be war, and we'll put our resources towards like fixing diseases and the sick like that. So it's not so much like the Messiah comes and like boom, everything's hunky-dory, but it just sets the path towards people like waking up and being like, oh, we've been selfish and ridiculous for the past like 6,000 years of human history kind of idea. But there's still going to be like a class system, not so much in the sense that one class is going to screw over another, but there's going to be tiers of wealth. But there's not going to be poverty in the sense that there's going to be like homeless, suffering people in the streets and stuff. But there's still going to be people that are going to be more well off than others, and they're going to have to take care of them by responsibility, spiritually and monetarily.
See, that's what always bothered me about the idea of fundamentalism and apocalypticism together, Christian apocalypticism. Where the forward view of the future, they don't plan any forward view. They don't care about the environment. They destroy. So there's no forward-looking innovation. It's just hang out until everything gets bad. Maybe we can force the end even, and have this come about by our own means. But it's not by their own means of driving themselves into misery and chaos and disorder that the kingdom of heaven will come about, or the
Yeah, right. I hear what you're saying. It's kind of like this idea of like kick your feet up and have a beard and like watch the apocalypse like rain down around you.
Right, and make your condition so bad that it actually happens. Like, I
Right.
don't believe,
Force
I have a hard time with that,
yeah.
yeah.
Right, exactly. Whereas like this point of view, at least the point of view that I was trained in through the Tanakh is the idea of like you have an active responsibility to bring it about, and your active responsibility bringing it about isn't like forcing the apocalypse, is forcing the world to change for the better, like creating just societies and morality and stuff like that. That's what's going to bring about the quote unquote messianic era.
Yeah, there's something else that was mentioned in this week's Parsha. Gosh darn. Porsche. I was watching 80s videos today. Is that can you know where my mouth is? You will know illness. Illness will be a thing of the past. Disease. The more I look, the more I'm not going to find it, I think. And that's just fascinating that was with the apocalyptic era the Western world's taught. Man, here's the thing that I think that's the worst thing about the Western take on all this. Well, I think there are two bad things. One is that no matter what, you can't win. They've created a system that, yeah, there's going to be Messianic age, the Messiah will come, and everything's going to be fine, and then something bad is going to happen, something terrible is going to happen. It's going to be the false prophet, and then Jesus comes and fixes it. So no matter what, you can't win. The other thing is the whole fly away doctrine. You know, like sit back and watch the apocalypse. I never liked that. We're just going to fly away. When it happens, we don't have to worry about a thing ever. We can just let go and let God. And that always bothered me. Yeah. Great. Abraham has a link here I'm going to go ahead and put in the room. It's a great Devar Torah on the Parsha from a rationalist perspective. So, we'll copy this. If you're interested, go to the event page, and I'll have it posted up there. If you're watching this on YouTube later, just get in touch with me, and we'll see about getting it to you that way. I've also heard that disease and illness, or disease is actually has a spiritual root in Judaism, that disease isn't necessarily microorganisms or viruses, but it's got a spiritual root.
I think in the sense that the spiritually sick are the kind of people that are going to charge people for an Ebola vaccine. And if they can't afford it, they're going to let hundreds of people die kind of idea. Like, that spiritual sickness kind of idea. Like, here's a cure. If you could pay me the money you don't have and you have to go into debt to save your own life, even though I could just give it to you, then whatever. But that's kind of my take on it. I'm kind of cynical when it comes to the perspective of that. Especially, I'm more cynical when it comes to like poverty and hunger and stuff, because there's like no rational reason why we can't feed every human being on the planet if we just like stop being selfish and nationalistic and just put our resources together and like plan this out properly. We could sustain everybody if we wanted to, but no, it's all about the mighty dollar sign. That's like a spiritual sickness to me.
Yeah, when you're strangers, when you come here, you know, be good to them. I don't know, I was thinking of people coming over here and people not wanting to help, you know. They're coming over here and eating our food and drinking our water and breathing our oxygen. These illegals. And they're, you know, they're branded illegals. They're not children. You know, they're not left on in straw baskets on the doorsteps of a monastery kind of a thing. But yeah, if they want to come here and get a job, you know, come on in. Everyone bows down to the flag of Edom, Reuben says, not me. Now here's something I thought's interesting about the Ark, and maybe maybe other fellow folk out there can help me out. It gives the first Ark, which was made solely of wood. Then there was the completed Ark, which was the golden with the cherubim, the bow, and the poles that were carried. I always heard that the second tablets were hewn, and that the first tablets were inside of the Ark. Like you had, you know, if this is the Ark here, the tablets were hewn and would sit down in the Ark, and then the broken ones, the first ones that God wrote Himself, the pieces were inside of that. Does that happen like later? Is that a far off thing I might have heard? Because we hear of two here, and they say that the wooden Ark is the one that goes into battle. But then again, like I said, there seem to be two different takes on that. I didn't know if if they ever did start carrying it in one Ark, if you know it was all there. And I thought I might add that it was sapphire. I heard that the stone, you know, we hear about stone tablets, and we see all the movies. These rounded top, very drab color, gray with chisel stones. And I heard in my Torah classes throughout the years that it was actually sapphire. That was blue, like crystalline, like that stone.
Yeah, there's definitely an opinion on that. I'm going to look for an article that discusses that. Give me 1 second, and I'll post it.
There was another thing where there was a vision given of the form of the Lord, and it was Moses over a river of sapphires. It wasn't actually God. I heard that he got the sapphire from straight down. He just dug in his tent straight down into the earth, and then bada boom. Article coming on the tablets. You also mentioned levels in wealth. I guess you could say maybe a caste system.
It's not so much a caste system in like the constructed sense. It's I posted a verse in Deuteronomy. It's saying that the poor will never cease in your land. It's saying like that's just a reality, but but that's not to say that there has to be poor. It's just saying this is just going to be a reality of the human condition kind of idea. So it's up to you to take care of the poor. So it's not saying like here's a tiered system, and this is how you have to live by it. But it was just dictating the concept of like this is going to like it's. I think the literal verse is that the poor won't cease from the land. Like there's at some point there's always going to be impoverished people. But when it's saying impoverished, it's not necessarily talking about like homeless people and people who are starving. It's just talking about those who are less fortunate than others.
That goes along with the verse in where are we here? This is 17:18. For Hashem your God, He is the God of powers and the Lord of the lords. He, the great, mighty, and awesome God who does not show favor and who does not accept a bribe. And in the commentary here in the stone, under does not show favor, the commentary says, unlike human rulers, God does not show favor to the eminent and the rich, Instead, verse 18, he carries out the judgment of the orphan and the widow. That's from Rambam. Also, Sophorno says he does not show favor to the evil son of a righteous father. To the contrary, the greater a person's status, the opportunities to do good, the more demanding God is of him. So even with poverty, an elevated level of poverty, I guess you could say, there's still going to. I mean, the money's still going to. It's still going to go full circle. You know, everybody gets a piece of the pie, an equal piece in God's eyes. He doesn't show favor. I like that. I like that a lot. You don't get.
See that level of poverty even today. Poor in America, generally speaking, is still a lot better off in a lot of ways than poor in some third world countries.
Yeah.
Well, poor is just a relative term for somebody who's not making as much money as another person. It's relative.
Yeah, exactly. I think especially from the Torah perspective, it dictates who the oppressed people are. It's the immigrant, the widow, and the orphan. It's people who are just kind of by circumstance aren't in a position of security. Might be a lack of security might be a better word than poverty. It's kind of people who don't have that support system.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like reading Isaiah, Jeremiah, they always talked about looking after the widow and the orphan.
And that's actually the reason that God gives to, I think, the prophet Isaiah is why Sodom was destroyed. So for some reason, a lot of Christians I hear on the internet say that Sodom was destroyed because of homosexuality, but it's not in the text. And then God actually tells the prophet Isaiah, it might be Ezekiel, but I'm pretty sure it's Isaiah. He says that Sodom was destroyed because they had bread, but they didn't share with the poor, and they weren't Ezekiel, right? And they weren't hospitable to those who came to them. So that's kind of the concept that's dictated in the prophets about if you have the opportunity to take care of somebody, you better do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I never really understood that fully until me and one of my buddies were backpacking. Probably hitchhikers and backpackers know that. I mean, you're walking all day on the trail and you're exhausted. And it wasn't really planned out what we were going to do. It was a legitimate trail. We were tired, and we had no idea where we'd sleep. We'd see posters, no trespassing signs all around. We're like, man, that's kind of cruel. Even if we came into this nice spot, we could get chased off. Even though we're still walking, it's 7 o'clock at night. We need to make camp someplace. So we had to be really careful about not breaking the law and not upsetting our neighbors and things like that. But and then finally we came to a spot and this guy said, yeah, sure, no problem, and it was the nicest thing ever, and you made a warm meal, and here other backpackers used that campsite before. They had left us sticks to build a fire and everything, and we did return the favor, and I finally understood that. I was like, back in the day, travelers spent days on the road and tired and weak and, in the elements and open to robbers and thieves and all kinds of stuff. And if people didn't take them in, you'd be in a world of trouble.
I think that really brings up an interesting point for Noahides, because people of Sodom and Sodom and Gomorrah were Noahides. So while on one hand there's no commandment that's part of the 7 laws that you should be hospitable, it's sort of this concept that it falls into the area of things that are considered wise practices. And Sodom and Gomorrah is the ultimate example of that, because if you look at the rabbinic stories of what happened there, it just started off with them being not liking hospitality and not liking to help travelers and stuff. But as that sort of morphed and became part of their society, it ended up with where they would invite people into their city and then like close up the city and lock them in a courtyard and just watch them starve to death. And like the example that we see with Lot, you know, he invited travelers into his house, and they come and say, hey, bring them out so that we can rape them and all this other stuff and kill them. So I mean, it started out with them not being hospitable, but it devolved into this really horrible. It's like it says here in the verse that Reuben brought from Ezekiel. They had arrogance, abundant food, and careless ease, but they didn't help the poor. And thus they were haughty, and they ended up basically committing abominations before me. So it's like, it's something that we should all, you know, be wary of. Essentially, not helping the, like what you were just bringing forth a minute ago, not helping travelers, not helping those in need, can basically almost become like a type of murder if you just leave someone, you know, without the help that they actually need when they're in their moment of need. Or it can literally become murder, depending on how far you take it.
I heard the people in Sodom died of starvation with gold in their pockets. Reuven brought up a great point. Yeah, John saw that too. Could it be covered under the establishment of courts of justice? You need to be a just society to have courts of justice about feeding the poverty, kindness to the stranger. I believe that's what you're talking about. I think definitely. It could definitely fall under that. You're supposed to encourage others to keep the Noachide code, or to set the example for others to possibly be inspired to keep it too. I would say that, yeah, that could very well. It doesn't. I don't have the codified. I don't have the English translation of the codification. But in the guide for the Noachide, it seems like the needs of the people within their respective domains is what I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, what's fascinating, too, you know how bad the case was in Sodom because the divine mentions that he came to see how bad it was. In the ancient Near East, if the gods come to see just how bad it was, you know it was really bad. Same for, I believe, the Tower of Babel. You know, they came to inspect it, or the messengers came to inspect it to see how bad it was. And you already know, you know, if they're doing that, it's pretty bad, you know. But playing devil's advocate, just to start the discussion a little bit the other way, I heard tell that the king of Sodom was in a war before that episode. So maybe the two strangers, the city was upset that Lot brought them in and not knowing who they were. Like, I know there's a wordplay on knowing, you know what I mean? And I read one commentary who went off that idea that, you know, possibly they were worried about spies coming into the city, and therefore, you know, they didn't treat them very well.
Yeah, but they wanted to rape them. I mean, I can understand, you know, not wanting spies of your enemies in there, but they wanted to rape them. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, one of the ways that you would dehumanize a person is just that.
Yeah.
You would dehumanize an enemy. Greeks, you know, would do stuff like that.
That's true.
Yeah, it was also like a common tactic. Like there's actually I was in New York and I was in New York actually the last week, and I went to the Museum of Natural History, I think it's called. It's like the big museum in New York City. And I was in the Near East section, and I was studying a lot of it because there's a lot of times I got to see firsthand some of the documents I was looking at. And I've learned already that in Kemetic, like in ancient Egypt, which also includes ancient Sudan, as well as the Levant, there's documentations of like social conduct of the utilization of what you might call institutionalized rape as a form of dominance and power. So it wasn't like how a lot of people frame it as like I guess where we get the term sodomites from. The concept of the people of Stone were trying to do these things because they had this like weird, crazy, I don't know, like unsatiable lust to rape people. But it was more so a concept of power and dominance over foreigners, kind of idea, in their place, and to show them if you're going to be in our city, you got to know who's boss, kind of idea. And it was like it was a common form, it was a common practice in the ancient Near East. So much so that it's in multiple societies. You find it in codified laws.
Yeah, same happened with the tribe of Benjamin in the Civil War over the handmaiden that they split in 12 pieces to send as a call for holy war because of that. You know, the same thing happened later in Judges. Where they showed up and they gave him the girl, you know, and
Oh, in Genesis?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I forget what section of Judges the Civil War with the tribe of Benjamin was when they called them and they didn't show. So the people of that city said the same thing, and they said, you know, take my handmaid, and he put her outside. They were going to sleep in the square, but somebody said, no, it's too dangerous, come to my house. Then people wanted to know who was there. So almost the same kind of episode happened. When the rest of the tribes found out about it, they took the girl, cut her in 12 pieces, and sent each piece. It's kind of like dividing the pieces like King Saul did as a call for holy war with the ox, dividing 12 pieces, send it, you better show. The tribe that didn't show, we come looking for you either after the battle or you face, you know, repercussions later. Benjamin didn't show, so they went after him, and almost the whole tribe was wiped out. Now, some scholars think that that was a dig against King Saul's political background, because King Saul, I believe, was from that tribe of Benjamin.
A proselyte. I get that word mixed up so many times with a proselytization, like people coming knocking on your door.
Yeah, proselytizing.
Right.
A proselyte is in Hebrew it'd be more accurately translated as an immigrant. Reuven could correct me, but I think like a ger would be most, you'd call that an immigrant. So like a ger is sometimes translated as a convert, but it's accurately an immigrant. Because it's but it's like the same thing. So it's like friendly alien, if you're right. So it's like kind of the idea of like ger. So like the idea of like when you're a convert to Judaism is called a ger, but it doesn't mean they like converted to a religion. It means they immigrated towards the nation. But then there's also a ger toshav, which is a Noachide who lives in the land of Israel, and they're like Roman said, like a friendly alien. It's like a foreigner. It's like a foreign person who lives amongst Israel. That's what a proselyte, as they translate it, is.
Okay.
It really depends.
I found a reference in Judges. Sorry about that. It's Judges 19. So you compare the Sodom story to Judges 19 and how the people react. You know, the people in the city react. It's pretty close.
$19.
Yeah, Judges 19. Sorry to get off track here. I just wanted to bring that up, you know, to compare, because we were talking about hospitality rights and things like that, you know.
No, yeah, it makes sense. Thanks. I'm gonna look it up. I just like, if anything, I like learning about the ancient customs and practices of the Levant and the Near East and all that stuff. So the societal norms, if you will.
What is the Hebrew word for judges?
Shoftim.
Thank you. And this was Judges chapter 19?
Yeah, pretty much the whole chapter. Like, it'll give you the full context and the reaction of the people of the city, and later what they did. And, you know, also, you know, you see later King Saul doing the same thing. You know, he takes an ox or a heifer, cuts it up in 12 pieces when they go to fight the Philistines or the sea peoples. So here they actually cut up the girl and do that. And the tribe that doesn't show, you know, that when there's a call for holy war, you show. They had a hard time uniting the tribes, like, for war for some reason in some of these texts.
The reason why I brought up proselyte was you shall love the proselyte, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Rambam says it's a new, I think it was, hang on. You shall love the proselyte. Although a convert is included in the commandment to love one's fellow Jews, God's love for the convert is especially great because he voluntarily accepted upon himself the yoke of the commandments. Because of this, the Torah added a new commandment, to love the convert. So I'm assuming this is the first time it shows up in Torah. The chinuch broadens this commandment to include all strangers, such as a newcomer to the neighborhood, a student at a new school, or a new employee. Just a little effort, just a little smile, a little handshake, introduction, look them in the eye. Changes the world, man.
Yeah, even thinking of Christian literature, it says someplace where, like New Testament literature says something, you know, like strangers that could be angels unawares or something like that. I don't know if it'd be appropriate to say this here, but in Greek and mythology, people believe that Zeus and Hermes walked among people to see how strangers and travelers were treated. And one time, when they sat down to eat in this pot made by this man, he tricked them into eating, well, almost eating human flesh. And Zeus knew and changed him into some kind of werewolf kind of thing, as some kind of punishment for not being hospitable, however you say that word.
Yeah, there's also like a lot of, I think it's like a common, I don't know, parable or teaching method throughout just human history. But I know of a lot of stories of Hasidim in Eastern Europe. I'm not in any way fond of Hasidic teachings, but there's a lot of stories of Hasidim and their rebbes, like their spiritual leaders would go undercover as like impoverished kind of beggars and would just wander from town to town to see how people would treat them. And then like there's like a bunch of these stories, and then like after like a point in time they do like a big grand reveal to give the people rebuke about how they're not, how like they open up their home to treat me, but I'm wealthy and I'm good. I don't need your hospitality. But when I was like a beggar and you didn't open your doors to feed me, that's who really needed it kind of idea. So I think it's just like kind of like a human, like an innate human parable that people use, and it's a good one because it's like a timeless one, Like it's so true now that it would have been in ancient Greek mythology.
Yeah, well, probably the beautiful text that I read, I love biblical literature and all that, but is the image of Abraham seeing the two messengers coming to his tent, and he's out, and he runs to him, and he makes him food and invites him in. To me that's pretty amazing, And he didn't ask questions or whatever.
Yeah.
On who they were. He didn't, he fed them and did everything that the rites said that he should do, and by treating them humanely, and they were strangers. He didn't have to do that. He could have been suspicious,
They say he would look for strangers every day. That nothing would please him more than someone to talk to about this thing. And
Sorry.
Please.
And I was going to say, one of the interesting things about that particular story about Abraham that a lot of people miss is that he wasn't just sitting around and some people happened to come by and he was like, hey, and ran to help him. He was actually in the middle of receiving like prophetic vision. He was in the middle of like receiving prophecy from Hashem, and two visitors comes up and he goes, oh, Hashem, you're going to have to wait a minute. He jumps up and goes and does it. So he like runs from the middle of like, the highest spiritual state, and he's like, oh, here's a mitzvah. This is even more important. I'll be right back.
and too, like that's what I find interesting is a lot of times in Christian thought, you're not supposed to argue at all with God or haggle at all with God. But here we see the patriarchs doing it all the time, and it's pretty amazing. And even not only what Abraham did trying to save everybody in Sodom, I kind of wish he wouldn't have been afraid and went down to one person. He would have had the whole city if he would have, because Lot was living there. I'm like, man, I was rooting for him. I was like, go to one, Abraham, go to one. But at the same time, there's a text in Ezekiel where the divine is telling Ezekiel how to act out this little skit or play, so when the people ask him what he's doing, he can prophesy to them. And he says, eat human dung for this and that. And he said, Lord, no unclean thing has ever touched my lips. I can't eat human, And he's like, okay, eat, I forget what it was, horse or something like that. So I mean, that shows that there is a little bit of leeway, and unlike the Christian idea of it, you can argue, and I believe the divine gives you that room a little bit if you need it, and if he feels that you do.
Absolutely.
There's a really interesting teaching that I received a long time ago when I was going through the conversion process about this. That very idea of arguing with God. And there's basically three big situations where the opportunity to argue with God was there, and it's almost like Hashem kind of wanted someone to argue with him. The first was with Noah, where God goes, "I'm going to destroy the world, Noah," and Noah just goes, "Okay." And then the second one is with Avraham, where he goes, "I'm going to destroy Sodom and Amorah," and Avraham goes, "Oh," and argues him down to like, "What if there's 10 people?" And Hashem goes, "Okay, if there's 10 righteous people there, I'll spare it." And Abraham goes, "All right, good enough." And then you get to Moshe, and Hashem goes, "I'm going to destroy the nation of Israel and start over with you." And Moshe goes, "Well, if you're going to destroy them, you're going to have to destroy me too, because I'm standing with them no matter what." And Hashem goes, "All right, then I'll spare them all." So it's like in each of these cases, it's like they got it a little better each time until you finally got to Moshe, who kind of hit the nail on the head. And it's kind of like maybe this is the answer that Hashem was fishing for all along. And it just took until Moshe to get it right.
I like it. I like it a lot.
So you are Jewish, Jacob. You said you started.
I began going through the conversion process years and years ago. But
right on.
Yeah. I decided to find out what this whole Noachide thing was about first, and I like it.
I was interested in converting first, before anything. I thought I was for a month. I really did. I was like, this is it. I'm Jewish. I know that there wasn't a better word for it, but yeah, I went to conversion classes as well. And you're talking about, I was mentioned in this week's Parsha when he recounts, the golden calf. I mean, that was in this week's Parsha. It was perfect. There's that word safeguard again, Abby. You must safeguard what is precious to God. He protects the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. You should too. Shows mercy and kindness. So should you. That's Ramban. Ramban. Excuse me. Nachmanides. Ramban.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really upset me. This isn't a bash on Christianity, but I'm just going to let it all hang out here a little bit. Driving by the big churches, huge churches, and if you were going to go in there, they might be taking donations for missions and sending money to missionaries and to help the poor, when their whole building as a whole could feed their whole community if they would just sell the whole thing. I'm like, why would I want to go to a coliseum? It's such a double standard,
I hear that a lot. Are they really that big? Like they can hold kind of like thousands of people type of idea?
Now who's the guy that's always smiling? He writes more books than you can shake a stick at. He's always smiling.
Yes, and big curly hair.
Olstein.
Like that, yeah. Yeah, I moved up to. I went back and visited my mom, and they took a ranch and leveled it and put a mega church in there, and it looks like a concert hall to me. It's like huge, maybe even more like a modern business complex. I mean, these things are massive, big, massive. You'd expect to see, a football game there. Some of the stadium's a little pushing it, but it's not too much.
Yeah, you go in, everybody's painted up like celebrities and, wearing expensive clothes and, the whole thing. Like, my grandfather, he was evangelical Christian, but he was old-time Free Methodist. He wouldn't even wear gold-rimmed glasses. Black coat, black tie, white shirt. And I'm like, they went to this little dumpy little church, not too many people went there. But at the same time, even though, he was out of that belief system, like, he was very aware of how everybody perceived him, and he thought about that, I don't think people do anymore. You got Benny Hinn knocking people over, and they rake in millions. He's got a jet. How do you justify that? In the end, in the world to come, if there's any kind of trial or whatever, and you're going to be asked some kind of question, how are you going to answer that? I don't even know you're going to be able to. Like, that's going to be tough to answer.
One born every minute, isn't there?
Well, I guess they could use a bargaining chip that they made so many people be cured from cancer and walk, so it might be worth it in that sense.
Oh, yeah. Gee, many. I'd rather watch wrestling. It's an ancient thing, man. How can you have that much gold and call yourself the Holy Roman Empire? That's a lot of gold. A lot of blood-stained gold. And people are asking now. I think a lot of them are. I don't know. I can't save them all, I'll try, darn it, but oh man. I feel bad. Honestly, I personally feel bad for these guys, for these people who Osteen, that dude. People kind of get suckered into it, I pity the fool. Indoctrination. Ugh.
He has another thing going for him with the young ladies, which is that he's a good-looking fella who knows his Bible. I think that's part of it. I'm sorry, it's show business. That's why we're on the internet.
It is, and he's got good eyes and a great smile and a good attitude, but I still think he's creepy as hell. It's kind of something about him just kind of creeps me out. I just kind of want to wash my hands after seeing him for 10 minutes or so, I'm not I mean, God fears, bless him, but you think we'd have learned after Jim Baker, Jimmy Swaggart. You think the people would have learned something. I guess not. Maybe some of us did. Maybe that's why we're here. I want to read the last couple of verses in the Parsha. For if you will observe this entire commandment that I command you to perform it, to love Hashem your God, to walk in all his ways, and to cleave to him, Hashem will drive out all these nations from before you, and you will drive out greater and mightier nations than yourselves. Every place where the sole of your foot will tread shall be yours, from the wilderness and the Lebanon, from the river to the Euphrates River, until the western sea shall be your boundary. No man will stand up against you. Hashem your God will set your terror and your fear on the face of the entire earth where you will tread, as he spoke to you. And it's happening. It's a very special time we live in, isn't it? Yeah, so we have a really nice
So anyway, this parsha goes to chapter 9, right?
it goes to 12, just before 12, 11:26.
So this is what's interesting here. I got this. I got a cheesy Bible. I'm using the New English Translation. My other good Bibles are at home. My text, right?
Mm-hmm.
So bear with me. But like sometimes the divine says grandiose things. Then he gives him a jab right in the ribs. For the justification of the conquest in Deuteronomy 9. Do not think to yourself, after Adonai your God has driven them out before you, because of my own righteousness, the Lord has brought me here to possess this land. It is because the wickedness of the nations that the Lord is driving them out ahead of you. It is not because of your righteousness or even your inner uprightness that you have come here to possess their land. Instead of the wickedness of these nations, the Lord your God is driving them out ahead of you in order to confirm the promise he made as an oath to Adam and Isaac and Jacob. So there are probably some people who were very self-righteous. That right there would make me want to go back home. I'd be like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? If it's not even for me. All because it was a promise from my forefathers, way back, that it almost seems here that the divine is grudgingly allowing this to happen because he owed it to the forefathers rather than, you know what I mean?
That's
like a really good rib jab,
like a father chastises his son.
At the same time, it's like, here's a giant bag of gold. Now, this isn't because you're so cool, it's because your dad was awesome.
Right.
Really enjoy the bag of gold, but, keep in mind why you have it.
That was measure for measure again, which started the Parsha out. It's not your righteousness that you're getting this, it's their folly. Their own evil. They self-implode on their own merit. I always wish that I could find, more stories of we Noachides, we non-Jews who might have been kind to the Israelites. Is there no? I mean, there's so much.
There is in Judges, I think. There's a family of Noachides. Maybe Jake could tell me. I don't remember. But there's a family of Noachides, and they have this vow of not drinking alcohol. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they're I think they're the descendants of Yithro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they were
awesome. Yeah, they were great guys.
Yeah.
I like Yisro. That was me. I was the guy who wandered through every religion possible, tried them all out, and came to Moses and it was a changed man. And that's in Judges, huh? I'll have to...
Yeah, I'm going to look it up.
Okay.
Well, if we want to try and read between the lines in this Parsha, there is sort of a lesson for us Noachides, which is, he's indirectly speaking about the nations here, which is that, don't you, obey Hashem and he won't drive you out from his land or, from the stuff that he's given you. He won't unbless you or whatever. He won't curse you. That's the lesson for us in between the lines here, I guess.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and here too, Deuteronomy Deuteronomy 8:3 gets put on the lips of Christ up in the New Testament literature. But I don't think that many of them go back to read this in full context about where it comes from or why he might have been saying it or why it might have been put on his mouth. About
He afflicted you?
cannot live by bread alone, but also by everything that comes from the Lord's mouth. So the whole thing in Deuteronomy 8:3, so he humbled you by making you hungry and when feeding you with unfamiliar manna. He did this to teach you that humankind cannot live by bread alone, but also by everything that comes from the Lord's mouth. Your clothing did not wear out, nor did your feet swell all these 40 years. So I mean, maybe there, it got mixed up a little bit in context later on in the Christian era. When he's saying that, it might have been intended to be said right, but later on it's taken on this whole theological something else, when right here it is. This is where they're getting it from, It's pretty amazing. If you actually go back and find all the references from the Tanakh in New Testament literature and actually go back and read them in context, it sheds a whole new light on what they were saying back then.
It was like kind of common speak. Everybody knew like the references at the time kind of idea.
Yeah, and that's what really bothers me. Like, as time progressed, they forgot about the original, what everybody knew, and they started applying it to everyday things, and it just took on a life of its own,
Yeah, religion has a tendency to do that. I was going to read you the commentary on Deuteronomy 8:3. And God afflicted you. It was on the afflicted you. He afflicted you with hardship of travel and let you hunger by not affording you extenuous pleasures. Even the miraculous manna was a test for the people because they had no prior experience with anything like it, and they did not know whether human beings could subsist for long on such food. Yeah, I hear that it didn't even get digested. It just went right to every cell in your body as soon as it entered your mouth.
It was like a multivitamin. It wasn't very appeasing, but it did the job.
Holy rations.
Yeah, exactly.
I always when I think of manna, I think of flavorless cotton candy. That was really the vision of maybe I saw it in a movie or something, but when I think manna, I think, yeah, flavorless cotton candy.
Yeah, holy MREs.
Yeah.
Now, to Greek mythology, ambrosia was the food of the gods, and it did almost the same kind of things. It's pretty amazing. Like, I often wondered if what was fed to Elisha by the messenger, if that wasn't manna in some way that allowed him to go so long after eating it when he thought all the other prophets were killed and he was fleeing from Jezebel.
I'm not sure. You know, there's a lot of myths that get made out of stuff. You know, I read, I guess it's oral Torah, that, and what I'm going to tell you, you're gonna associate it immediately with something else. Westerners will. But it was Moses had to pull a sapphire rod from a rock, something like that. I think it was with Yisro. I could be wrong. I just heard that, I always found that it's like I found when I started studying Judaism, all facets of it, not really the religious thing. My wife is talking to me. I'll be right back. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
So what I think is interesting is in chapter 8, verse 16, God talks, or I guess Moshe talks about the manna, and it's using interesting language. It says, who feeds you man in the wilderness, which your forefathers knew not, in order to afflict you and in order to test you, to do good for you, but to do good for you unto the end. So I think is really interesting about this is that God saying, like, yeah, man sucked. Like, a lot of times I think when I read, I get like this kind of idea of like this kind of like magical heaven food that was like I don't know, like candy from like God, but God saying, or Moshe saying, is like this man, it was like it afflicted you. Like his literal wordings is that he says in order to afflict you and in order to test you. So God gave them this like kind of subpar, like kind of military ration food that like did the job, like it sustained them, but there was no frills about it. And it said to do good for you in your end. So the idea of like the whole concept was this idea of like the man was this test, like it was designed to be lackluster. It was designed to be this like tasteless kind of cotton candy kind of idea, but the concept was to test the people, and I think that's, I guess, kind of like the justification why the people complained so much, why they kept on asking for other food. Like it's not like they're saying that they were starving; they were just asking for like we want meat, we want watermelons, we want cucumbers, we want leeks, we want all these things we had in Egypt. Not that we want food, we want specific types of food. So like they were being provided for their basic nutrients, so they were surviving. That was a miracle. But the idea that it was being subpar, and it was from, if you're getting kind of the concept that it was coming from the hand of God, God could give them anything. But he chooses to give them these like flaky dew stuff. He could have like made watermelons and leeks fall down from the sky or spring up miraculously, but he chose to give them this subpar food. And the reason why is God says, I'm going to give you this stuff to support you, but it's order to test you. And I think that's a very interesting lesson, the concept of how God interacts with people is like, don't expect things on a silver platter. Like, kind of like, and I think kind of like what we were saying about the televangelists, where they're like, kind of like, write your check and you'll be free from debt and I'll heal your cancer and all this stuff. But like even like the most kind of miraculous time period in human history, God doesn't even act that way. He's like, I'll do a miracle for you. Here's some flaky, tasteless cakes. You go and eat this and see how you fare, kind of idea. And it's the idea of I think, I don't remember where exactly it is, but I know the Rambam quotes it. He says, you're not supposed to put your faith in miracles. Like that's not where character development, that's not where your faith in God comes from. It's not from miracles. It's from like the day to day. And I think that's what in chapter 8, verse 16 of Deuteronomy, that's what it's trying to teach the people is like, I fed you, but I did it in order to afflict you and to test you. And it'll be good for you in the end. So it's kind of like, that's the idea of all tests kind of idea. Like they suck and they're hard and you have to cram and you have to like power through and you have to be stressed out. But in the end, God willing, they'll turn out well for you. But if you fail, you fail.
Yeah, and you usually remember, I remember when me and my wife first got out of college, and we were broke, poor, living together, and we were on a diet of like ramen noodles and all kinds of stuff, before we both found jobs, and it was really bad. But you know what? I know how to do it, and if we ever had to go back there, I would eat a good bowl of ramen noodle, and every time I do, I remember, and also I wanted to throw in, maybe the divine was getting the people ready for being battle hardened and being out in the desert, by showing them that they can survive and have nutrients, without all the amenities and actually make it. I mean, some cultures actually, that's part of training for warfare, on the conquest side of it, that was to come,
I think that's the whole concept of the concept, at least on a metaphorical level, of the time in the wilderness, the 40 years in the wilderness, was this idea of training the people in order to be a nation that's able to do their job, kind of idea. And it does kind of need this time of seclusion and this time of poverty to really elevate yourself to a higher level, because you can't expect somebody who comes from a very affluent background to make waves in human history. But if you get somebody who comes from the gutter and brings them up to a higher level, you can expect a lot more for them. So I think that's like the whole concept. And I think the idea, exactly what it's saying in that verse that I quoted, was the idea of that God could have given them better stuff, but he gave them those ramen noodles in order to show, like, you get what you need, and I'm not going to give you any more, to kind of test you and to see like how well you could fare. So when you do get to this heights, like kind of in like the idyllic Solomonic time period, that they won't forget where they came from, and that when things go bad again, they can return to that and know things will be okay.
I always looked at it as a lesson in humility. I mean, like when you say, like Wayman brought up too, is that, I'll give you what you need, but you have to remain. It's like, I seem that like a test in humility is what it seemed to be. You don't need more. You give him what you need to do the job. Don't, I mean, he topples nations for Israel. Look what he did to Egypt. He made an example out of them. He made an example out of those people for the world to know until the end of time. And he's doing it all for Israel, and he just seems to repeatedly remind Israel, remind us, sure, to try and remain humble. I get humility out of it. I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing. I got 2 cents. I thought I'd throw it into the pot.
So did we ever find an answer on the 2 arcs? Like, was there one simply made of wood and the other inlaid with gold and things like that? Or so was that calling back to saying, hey, remember the more primitive time before you had the wealth to create all these even holy instruments? Like, I never heard that.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
There was the wooden one, and then there was the one described to them earlier in the Torah, which is one we all know of, and that the wooden one contained the original tablets.
The smashed ones.
Right. Now, them being Hume and carrying did they in the end get rid of the wooden ark?
I have no idea. I don't even know anything about the ark conversation, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I don't either. I know very little.
I posted a link that talks about the sapphire tablet concept. I'll just repost it here. It's an article in a good online magazine I suggest everybody subscribe to. It's free. You can just put in your email and they'll send it to you when every issue comes out. It's very good. So I think, Wayman, you'll really enjoy it. James, everybody will really enjoy it. It really is really critiquing and goes into some deep stuff and gives you some historical and archaeological background, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that you could read them. It said you could read them from any, no matter what position you were juxtaposed to the tablet, you could read them. You could read the commandments. Oh, this is good stuff. Thank you. Yitzhak, thank you very much. I'm saving you.
So every time I come to the study, I have about 10 tabs open.
Yeah.
Here, 1 second. I'll give you guys the link if you want to subscribe to the magazine. And it has all the back issues.
Oh, nice.
So, here.
Where are you at? Where are you at? Come back here. Hang out. Excellent. Misora.org. Misora.org. Looky there. Let's just get right to it.
And also, to keep on plugging the site, Misora.org has a lot of great articles in and of itself, and Devar Torahs on the Parsha from a very level-headed, not flighty standpoint, and really critiques the text, and not just tries to sugarcoat stuff. And it also talks about a lot of different Jewish concepts. So
There's the maple leaf. Ah. Love a Canadian Jew. You guys have been very good. Actually, they all been good. You've been good to me. That's awesome. All right.
Yeah, I've got an interesting thing I noticed in reading this week, this Parsha. Thought I would throw out there for you guys.
Yeah.
So in 8, when it's going through, like, it's essentially explaining that the Jewish people need to, guard Hashem's commandments. And it says, starting in 8:11, it says, "Take care lest you forget Hashem your God by not guarding," and again, in the English here it says observing, but in the Hebrew it actually says guarding, "His commandments, His ordinances, and His decrees, which I command you today. Unless you eat and be satisfied, and you build good houses and settle," yada yada. And then it goes on into 18, and it says, "Then you shall remember Hashem your God, that it was He who gave you strength to make wealth, in order to establish His covenant that He swore to your forefathers, as this day." So he's saying that you shall remember Hashem your God in order to establish the covenant that He swore to your forefathers. So what's this covenant he's talking about? If you go back to Genesis 26, here's where it ties in for us Noachides in an interesting way. So in Genesis 26, this is basically where Abraham has just died, and this is basically his, according to the oral tradition, this is where Abraham has just died, and this is like his eulogy, in a sense. Hashem appears to, who's he talking to? Yaakov, I guess, and says to him, "Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. For to you and your offspring will I give all these lands, and establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father, which is namely, I will increase your offspring like the stars of the heavens, and I will give to your offspring all these lands, and all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your offspring. Because Abraham obeyed my voice, or he listened to my voice, literally in Hebrew, and he guarded my safeguards, my miswoth, my decrees, and my Torahs. So it's saying that part of the promise to Abraham is that part of this covenant that Hashem is making with Israel, and part of the reason that they are guarding the miswoth of Hashem, as it says right here, so that all the nations of the earth may bless themselves through your offspring. And that means they're guarding these miswoth so that us nations can come and take hold of them when we're finally ready to return to Hashem, or to come to Hashem. So it's explicitly saying that here. Also, another interesting point, a lot of people will say that it never mentions that the 7 laws directly in the Torah. But right here it says, Abraham obeyed and guarded my miswoth. What miswoth is it referring to? The Torah hadn't been given yet. So it has to be referring explicitly to the 7 laws. So, just a couple interesting things.
Not to be too haughty, but not too long ago I made a video showing each one of the 7 laws in the book of Genesis before Abraham, or before at least Isaac, how all 7 are present in the text. So if anybody wants to check that out and like it, that'd be great. And I'm writing up an article to put on a website I'm building to show all the examples of it. So I'll post that in time.
Well, nice chatting with you all. I gotta head out. So, awesome discussion. Learned a lot. Thanks for the links, everybody.
James, you're talking, but your mic's mute.
Have a good one, Wayman. I'm going to watch your video on Billum and critique it. So get ready.
Thanks, Wayman. Shalom, baby. Have a great night. I'm going to have to get out of here as well. I try not to have work on Thursday nights so that I can, so that we can have I put this priority. But it's Elvis week, and our morning guy needs me to go set up for this Elvis thing they're doing in the morning, so I have to go do that. But I'm on the clock, so I'm getting paid. I'm feeding the family with it. Rarely would I ever cut this short, because I could talk more. But we're going to kill it live for all you fine folks tuning in out there on YouTube and Google Plus land in the world. Thank you for tuning in. We do this every Thursday night on Google Plus. Join Google Plus. It's pretty easy. It's not very intrusive at all. And welcome to join the Hangout. Tune in. Questions, comments, compliments, complaints. My email is jamestheidolsmasher@yahoo.com. We appreciate you tuning in. Shalom. Peace.